Oi, oi, hello and welcome to another Which Bookie racing preview. This time we are looking forward to Dublin Racing Festival. In this episode, we will be previewing Saturday's racing day one. Then tomorrow when we get the final declarations for Sunday, we will be doing another video for that. So we're not going to rush through this trying to cover both days. We're going to just try and get through day one on its own. And there is some really good racing to look forward to, Will, across 2 days to be fair, but so many grade ones. So many of Willie Mullins' pecking order will get sorted out. And there are so many races worth a lot of prize money. It's over €2 million worth of prize money. The handicaps are well worth targeting in their own right. I know we like to look forward to the Cheltenham Festival, especially this time of year, thinking that everything's a plot, but there's going to be a lot of horses that have targeted this meeting. And fingers crossed, between the two of us, we can point the viewers in the direction of the ones that we think are going to perform to their best at this meeting. So, anything you want to say before we start cracking on with the race? And you excited about the weekend?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's it's always a good couple of days, isn't it, over at Leopardstown. Willie Mullins, of course, clean sweep of grade ones at the meeting last year. It'd probably be odds against for him to not do that this year, you'd imagine, again, given the look of how the grade ones are shaping up. But as you said, there's some really good prize money to go at in the handicaps and the bumpers as well. So, yeah, loads of informative stuff. And it's kind of one of the last signposts really before the Cheltenham Festival, isn't it? So we'll have some hopefully decent anti-post views to go at the festival markets once the DRF is done and dusted.
Absolutely. I'm going to shoehorn a few little anti-post recommendations before this weekend as well. So viewers will get that if you stay tuned on this. It was 11 festival winners ran at the Dublin Racing Festival of the 27 races last year at Cheltenham. So, I mean, it goes without saying this is a launch pad, but when you've got Willie Mullins winning all the grade ones and then you've got Willie Mullins winning at Cheltenham, they sort of go hand in hand, don't they? Wherever Willie's running his horses, they are going to be pointers for future success. So looking at that, first race we'll crack on with is the Nathaniel Lacey Grade 1 Novices Hurdle. So over 2 mile 6, there's been some good names that have won this in the past. I think pretty much every winner of this race has gone on to Cheltenham. The Dublin Racing Festival has been going for 7 years now. No horse has won this and won at the festival, though. We've had lots of horses come second in races in March. But Final Demand's head in the market at the moment. Haven't got jockey bookings through, but I'm pretty sure Paul Tannen will be on him. Super Sunday's second in the betting, sporting all the headgear. First time hood, first time tongue tie after putting quite keen in the Lauders and Ace. Patrick rode him then, so he might stay on. Sounds Victorious is in here. Jasmine DeVoe's got JJ Slevin on now, Foreman here and Suede. He's got cheap pieces on for the first time. Mozzie Sisters in there at 12 to 1, I think, and it's 20 to 1 bar. But looking at this race, Will, it's going to be a pointer towards something at the Cheltenham Festival. It's probably going to be the winner of this race that goes close in March. Final Demand's just had that one start under rules. It was pretty impressive, though. So how do you think this race could pan out?
Yeah, it was very impressive, wasn't it? Visually, he cleared away from the maiden hurdle field at Limerick at Christmas time. On the clock, it wasn't anything special, but he just left the impression that there was a good bit more to come, definitely. He did just shift a little bit right-handed at his hurdles at Limerick, which would obviously suit there, but coming to Leopardstown over the hurdle track, that would be slightly less suitable. So I thought, without sort of clear pricings as we're talking, but the anti-post market suggested he was the second in. I did think Super Sunday was more than interesting. As you mentioned, Paul Townend on the HRI website that I can see, he's been jocked up for Final Demand. You'd imagine, as you say, Patrick Mullins will be on Super Sunday. He's been on him a couple of times now. He was on him in the Supreme Novices last year when he actually ran a cracker of a race. He was held up out of the back and he came through and picked up a few pieces late on and was beaten less than 10 lengths by Slade Steele. So, but it was more his run behind the yellow clay at Naas on the 5th of January in the Grade 1 there that sort of marks him out as a horse that, classic Willie Mullins really, inherits a horse, keeps him a maiden, gives him a season over hurdles, or at least a run or two over hurdles, and then comes to another novice season with that experience behind him. He'll be a better, stronger horse. The hood tongue tie combination is an interesting aspect because it's inherently it would sort of slightly put you off in terms of they feel they need to do something to settle this horse. But plenty of his horses in the last couple of years have worn either a hood and a tongue tie or a combination of both. And they've Ilete Tomp is one that springs to mind, and they've been fine with them. So I expect it to produce a better performance from Super Sunday. And I think, you know, he could be, in terms of raw ability, he's up there with Final Demand on what we've seen. We've only seen them a handful of times. So, you know, very, very small sample size. But if you get, I don't know, 9 to 2, 5 to 1 about Super Sun Super Sunday, then that would look a decent each way bet to me.
Yep, he is 9-2. They've reformed some of the markets, so he's 9-2, second favourite in behind. So he definitely does look like the sensible each way play. 142, he's got an official rating so far. You obviously touched on he ran in the Supreme. I'd just like to add that he did run in France, the 4-year-old, in April 2022 as well. So he's actually a third season novice. And the hood and tongue tie thing, he was really well backed in that Lord as an Ace. Don't think he necessarily left his race behind there, but I don't know. I feel like this would have been more of a target for Final Demand, but that horse has got to step up to do that. So I think he does warrant favouritism. The one that interested me at a bit of a price was Mozzie's Sister, that ran behind the Yellow Clay on the penultimate start. Was much closer to the Yellow Clay than Super Sunday, got in that Lord as an Ace. After that, went up in trip, ran behind the Big Westerner, who's quite well fancied for an Albert Bartlett. And now this trip being right in the middle of those two, I think will really suit Mozzie's Sister. So 12-1 about that horse, again, from an each way type perspective. Sounds Victorious just jumped really, really badly. So he could run well, could improve. Jasmine DeVoe, I could forgive his first one, couldn't forgive what he did in the Law as an Ace. Yeah. He jumped terribly. The cheek pieces worry me. And Willie Mullins said on his stable tour recently that he was bad in his points as well. So jumping's always been an issue. So I think Mozzie's Sister at 12-1 could be a bit of an each way play, but I think the market's got it about right apart from Mozzie's Sister. So it wouldn't be one I'll be getting too stuck into. But I do think that Final Demand, he's about 7 or 8-1 top price, I think, for the Albert Bartlett. I'd imagine he's the type that if he did go and win this, he'd be going there rather than going to a Turner. So if you fancy him to win this, that might be another way in for it, because horses can get beat here, can't then still win at Cheltenham. So maybe that's the way to play it. Right, we'll move on to the Spring Juvenile, because definitely horses can get beat in this and then go and win at Cheltenham. I think is it the last 4 Triumph Hurdle winners have come from this race. But obviously we've got East India Dock and Alhambra at the front of the market. So when you get the years where the Brits are that little bit further ahead, I don't know how much this makes a difference. It's crazy to me how it does happen though, Will. We have some years where there is a really good horse in Ireland, a juvenile, or there's a couple of them, and then some years you get it where there's really good ones on this side of the sea. I think it's very rare that you just get an absolute worldie on both sides in the same season. It seems a bit strange, but this is a real good race, the Spring Juvenile. In the past, you've had horses that clash against each other at Christmas. They reoppose here. We had the year when Mr. Adjudicator and Far Class, they reversed the form between each other in Cheltenham. That was the year that Espoir Delan got an injury. He started off, looked like he was going to be a real Triumph Hurdle horse. But we've got Hello Neighbour that won that race at Christmas, beating Lady Vega Allen. We've got St. Lucie in here as well, who wouldn't have been the number 1 Rich Reekie horse for the Triumph at the start of the season when Willie de Hull was favourite for it. He's in this race too at 33s. There's a few horses in between that sort of double figure prices as well, Will. But I thought from that Christmas run, Lady Vega Allen was the one to take out of it compared to Hello Neighbour, especially with the fact that Hello Neighbour had the rail to help and half a stride more, Lady Vega Allen would have come in winning the race. So the fact that that horse is 4-1, Hello Neighbour's 7-4 favourite, I think that's the wrong way round. And St. Lucie's, I guess, maybe priced up in the fact that Paul Townend would probably ride for the Reekies. Maybe Sean O'Keefe stays on Lady Vega Allen. But on figures, I don't really think that St. Lucie did enough to say that it's going to be the next best thing. And it's almost a bit of an afterthought. As I say, I think Willie de Hull was their number 1 horse that didn't do it. He's very interesting for a Fred Winter for me now. It obviously depends what sort of mark they get, but he's about 10-11-1 non-runner money back for that. He might end up being a little bit like a kind of Gaelic Warrior type horse that if he gets in there off a nice mark, goes off relatively short. His jumping is bad, but this is going to be more experience for him. And I see no reason why they would try and get him close in there. So it's a good race for him to get hidden in. But at the prices, I would definitely side with Lady Vega Allen at 4-1. Not always the first string wins this race for Willie Mullins, but how did you see it? Did you think that Hello Neighbour does deserve to be favourite and I'm being a bit harsh on him?
No, I think you're right in that summation. Definitely. I think Lady Vega Allen, the way that Willie Mullins would train his juveniles, they would definitely be more to come second, third, fourth start. I mean, we've seen it season in, season out. They're almost peaking at the Punchestown Festival as opposed to now and the Cheltenham Festival, some of these juveniles. So it'll be fascinating to see how they all, mix out. I think that the 2 fillies, Lady Vega Allen and St. Lucie, obviously they're open to a good chunk of improvement. And what they've done already is distributed a high level of form. I'm quite intrigued by Sonny Bill, who was in behind Hello Neighbour and Lady Vega Allen the other day, though, at Christmas time, because I think he's got the profile of a horse who, the size and scope of him perhaps might come on that little bit more. And he did actually race more in France compared to the others, but he showed a very high level in France with Nietzsche Haas, the Grade 1 winner, multiple Grade 1 winner over there. So I thought he was interesting to see which way he went in the market. Danny Mullins will ride him. It's not an out-and-out bet by any stretch of the imagination, because there's so many unknown quantities really with regards to these horses stepping up and improving. And I think with regards to Triumph Hurdle market, I think there's probably more likelihood of a winner of a Boodles coming out of this race, running down the field here and then going on to win that handicap, than there is probably one of the other horses improving to mix it with Lalamba and East India, Doc. It sounds strange to say that, really, because like you said, the last 5 or 6 years, the Irish have absolutely dominated the juvenile scene, but it looks as if the tables have just turned a little bit.
Yep, fingers crossed. I do quite like that, like for the fact that we can be a nice pointer for other races, rather than it just being the fact that it's a Grade 1 race. We do sometimes get it over this side where I think some of the trainers avoid the big clashes because they don't want to get their horses beat, whereas you can give them good experience in him and let them run down the field. That Sunny Bill will be definitely interesting because Sauvignon beat him, didn't he? And then Sauvignon was like a pig at Cheltenham, but then, like you say, Nietzsche Has goes and wins the Chepstow race, wasn't it, over Christmas?
Yeah, I think regards Sauvignon, that just wasn't, his running. If you watch back his runs in France, he looked like a good animal.
And he was a wicked drifter as well on Saturday, wasn't he? So that sort of spoke volumes, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, we will move on to the listed handicap hurdle over 3 miles. This is a race where I only see one thing happening, Will. This is a very straightforward race. The first thing that will happen is we'll get this recorded as quickly as possible, get it uploaded as quickly as possible, and anyone that watches it first up might still be able to sneak some of the 7-2 available with Paddy Power or Sky Bet. They might still be able to get the 5-2 that's available with Bet365. But mark my words, Will, Metered of the Waters goes off about even money. It will be like Total Recall all over again from, I think it was 2018. He's managed to get in without being out of the handicap as well. There was a horse in here that was, I can't remember the name of it, I really should. 144 it was rated, and he would have put this horse £7 out of the handicap. 136 is the highest horse that's in the field now, which means the horse isn't even out of the handicap. But he's rated like 30 odd pounds better over fences than he is over hurdles. He's never run over hurdles since he's joined Willie Mullins. He's clearly a very good horse. And for all that he unseated at this meeting last year, and people would say, well, he doesn't really jump very well. It is only hurdles, but that's not an excuse. Like, obviously, horses that make mistakes can make mistakes over any obstacle. But he competed in a Cheltenham Festival, was only 5 lengths behind County Classico, and he finished a Grand National. So his jumping can't be that bad. Rachel Blackmore takes the ride because I don't think Mark Walsh will be able to do the weight. He's on Percival de Gaulois that won this race a couple of years ago, fell in the same race that Meeting of the Waters unseated in last year behind Hartwood when he was in with every chance. He won that race a couple of years ago off a £10 lower mark, but he won it so well that you'd think, especially a couple of years down the line, he probably would be able to win a handicap off this mark. So definitely deserves to be in there for like a bit of cover. But surely, Will, if Meeting of the Waters just gets round, it absolutely dots up.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a bigger discrepancy between hurdle and chase mark compared to what Meeting of the Waters has here. So in terms of being well handicapped on the raw ability of the horse, absolutely, absolutely thrown in. Everyone knows that, everyone can see that. So and I echo your sentiments. I'd be surprised if he doesn't go off even money, or dare I say it, shade of odds on perhaps in this event as well. So it could be an absolute good thing. So it might be worth looking in some of the markets perhaps without, once they do open up. There's 1 or 2 interesting horses at bigger prices here. Gay Cool I thought was interesting for Ted Walsh, a horse who runs really well over this course and distance and has done on a number of occasions. Ran well in the Pertemps qualifier last year. He actually won over this course and distance at Christmas time as well. And she looks as if she's a horse who they've sort of campaigned with this perhaps race in mind. Now, they were probably counting for, something not having about £40 in hand of the handicapper. But that said, hurdles, fences, they're different disciplines. If you fancied a small play in the outright market with Gay Cool, then wouldn't put you off that. But I'm certainly going to be looking into the without markets once they're sort of fully opened up and matured, because I think she's ready to hit a season's best here, Gay Cool, and that should see her in the frame at nothing else.
Yeah, I like that. It's a nice race. They're not always necessarily this straightforward. And just because I've said like it's an absolute good thing, just want to echo the sentiments of everything. Like, it's your decision what you want to bet on. And obviously everything's got its own price, hasn't it? As much as we could really fancy something. Even when I mentioned Gaelic Warrior earlier, he was a bet for the Boodles given his French rate. I know people were arguing that you couldn't really well outperform. still got beat. So you can get these
Yeah.
horses that are thrown in that are definitely better than their marks, and it doesn't necessarily pay off. I touched on Total Recall that it did work with a few years back. I think he was £31 better. This one's about 36, but yeah, it's one of those. It's an obvious shortener, but it will reach a point where it's probably too short. And I don't know. I think I say they'd be better even money, Pokes. Don't know if there would be if this horse obviously goes off, but it's one of them, isn't it? It's a handicap hurdle. Like you say, they're different disciplines. So you never really know. It's always much easier in hindsight. But with foresight, 5-2 about him, the 7-2 that's top price is, woo, it's juicy, Will. It's a good way to start a weekend, I think. And that's just before the football kickoff. So I don't even know why I mentioned that in last week's video, but I'm going to continue the theme. Whenever we do a Saturday preview, I'll mention when the football will kick off. Right. So before the football does kick off, the last bit of clues we'll get towards whether Madborough is going to be able to get anywhere near Sagino will have been filled up. I think this one for me is pretty straightforward in the fact that Firefox was definitely for me always going to be a 2 miler. I don't know why they ran him over 2.5 miles, and I don't know why they tried to sit him in behind over 2.5 miles. You'd think if they were going to pick up races over a longer distance, you'd just be forceful. He's a good horse, got loads of speed. I didn't like them messing about with him, but I thought his run behind it Atlantique, dropping back to 2 miles, was encouraging enough. Obviously, it's a big change of concept for the horse when you've trained him to race in a certain style over one distance and then you're going back to do something else. So I think he's got a better chance than his 10-1 price tag would have people believe. Touch Me Not, of course, ran well behind Loda Sud. He's definitely an interesting horse, but he's only gone this way round once and he was miles back. So I don't think it's his preference to go left-handed. But look, he's definitely got a chance on what he's shown in terms of raw ability. And Il Atlantique last time in Nace was very good. He's a horse last year that just disappeared. His form just tailed off really, really quickly. I'm terrified that could happen with him again, but I'd still think that you'd be able to catch him this time of year. And Willie Mullins is conscious of it, so maybe he's doing different things for him. So all that said, Il Atlantique, Firefox and Touch Me Not, they wouldn't be disgraceful winners of an Irish Arkle, in my opinion. Madborough definitely deserves to be favourite. And on that debut, he made a few mistakes, which I don't mind and actually want novices to do because they're only going to learn from it if they do start to make mistakes. He put in one leap, I think it was maybe 4 out, where he just looked like an actual seasoned champion chaser. I was sort of taken aback a bit when he did that. And then he quick and clear off the back of the last time. But he was getting £6 from Tully Hill. Tully Hill's never done anything higher than the mid 140s. So I'm being critical of this horse simply for the fact that he is best price 4 to 6 for this race, Will. So in my mind, I'd ask you the question, would you rather back him at 4 to 6 or would you rather have the whole field running for you at 6 to 4?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I've got a categorical answer to that. I think the market is absolutely spot on. You know, I can't find any chinks in it really. I do think Il Atlantique is going to win a Grade 1 2 mile chase. Definitely. You know, he has shown this season in his 2 runs that his natural cruising speed, the tongue tie has gone on, and he just looks like a bit of a more refined, stronger model at that trip. He looks like, you know, a ready-made 2 mile staying chaser, if you know what I mean, a staying 2 mile chaser, should I say, in that over hurdles, because he showed that he must have been showing at home that he had a bit of stamina. They pushed him out over hurdles and he just never quite saw it out. You know, he was always a bit weak, and I think he's probably stronger this year. I think fences, the way he has jumped on his 2 starts, has made him a quicker horse because he's been able to take a blow after each fence because he's jumped well. Is that going to be good enough? I think he'll beat the others quite easily. I do. I think he's absolutely the right clear second favourite. Is it going to be enough to beat Madborough? I think with Madborough, you can pick holes in the form. I know, obviously, Triumph Hurdle, absolutely stonking run, without a shadow of a doubt. And it was a cracking run the other day on his chase debut. But the same horses were beaten by Mr. Giff on their next start. You know, they should have all been improving for the run, but they were beaten by a horse who wasn't really considered by the market, and I don't think was really considered by connections on the day, but he was able to pick them all up. So, you know, is the form of what Madborough did all that good? I think if you were trying to make a case to take him on, you could find reasons to do so. But that was his first chase start. He has the size and scope of a horse that's going to improve massively. He's so inexperienced as well. He's going to take a jump forward in regards to that. That's why I think the market is absolutely spot on. I see Madborough beating Il Atlantique, and the pair of them are probably a good bit clear of the remainder.
Yep, fair enough. And the reason I wanted to pose the question to you like that is because I did that to myself at the end of me doing my notes for this, and I thought exactly the same as you. I was like, well, I don't know what I'd do. Like, I feel like I feel like I'd not want to do either of those two things. But it is kind of food for thought, especially if he starts getting supported. Obviously, there's more than one way to play a race. You don't have to get involved in everything. But I feel like if he starts at 4-6, I'm on the fence of which way I'd want to play it. If he starts to shorten up loads and all of a sudden I'm getting 2-1 the field, like I said, In Atlantic's definitely the right second favourite, but like Firefox is no mug. And Touch Me Not, I know it's going the wrong way around, but like on ability, he's already put in a performance that would be worthy of him running quite close in this race. But again, with all of that, just trying to find an into a race where Madgeborough might just do like what Sergino did, goes up against better horses and then just says, I'm just better than all of you, so I'm going to go and win. So possibly one, I think it'll be one that I would personally sit out on there. If I was having any small interest for the sake of it, I maybe would just lay Madgeborough for small stakes, maybe to get myself another round in the pub. But the football would have kicked off by now. We'll get another reference into that. And then it's Irish Gold Cup time, where I've said this will be quick for lots of these. This one's worth 140,000 euros for Galopin Des Champs to win this one. It's mega prize money. There is chunks of money in behind, but I think maybe people like JP McManus, they'll land some pots when they want to land a pot. This, for me, looks like it's nothing but information gathering for them on fact to file. And I'm fascinated in this race because if they run him back in the Ryanair, they'll make use of him, send him off the front, and I think he'll be a force to be reckoned with. They will not be able to do that against Galopin Des Champs over this trip because he's just too keen. So I think logically, this race, they're just going to try and make him settle again. And then if he doesn't settle, they'll go to the Ryanair. And if he does settle, I think they'd have spent so much time making him settle that he might just be a never nearer second. And it'd have to look like the extra 2 furlongs at Cheltenham would pose the question that he could get to Galopin Des Champs. But unless Galopin Des Champs makes a howling mistake, I see no way in any way, shape or form that Galopin Des Champs gets beat in this race. And again, from not the pricey type perspective, Madgeborough might be that horse, although we don't know yet. When you can get 4-6 on Galopin Des Champs for this race versus the 4-6 of Madgeborough, where I think everything else in behind Madgeborough is trying and they're doing their best. They're not necessarily fact-finding missions. I think Galopin Des Champs, dare I say it, odds on would look like a potential bet in the race. I wouldn't be interested in trying to find anything each way at a price, but that may be where you come in on this one, Will, because for me, it's straightforward. Galopin Des Champs does win. Factor his biggest danger, but I don't think Factor is going to be ridden with the tactics in mind of let's try and beat Galopin Des Champs today and not worry about the next day. I think everything he's doing on Saturday is all about a view to the festival.
Yeah, I think you're right there, definitely with Factor. I know after the Savills chase, they sort of came out and said, or Willie said, Mark might have a plan for Factor to try and, improve on his performance in respect to Galopin Des Champs. But I completely agree with you in that if you do go up and match him, you are going to find out absolutely whether he's good enough and he stays strongly enough. And he also might just light him up a little bit too much in doing that. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of where Galopin Des Champs was, if you go back a couple of seasons, where he, into his novice season and first season open chasing, there was quite a big doubt about whether he stayed, whether he was a rock solid cast iron stayer. And now, look at him now. I mean, he's an iron horse. He would stay as far as you'd want him to stay. He's just brilliant. Interestingly, the 2 last Irish Gold Cups that he's won on the clock and sort of on ratings and various other systems, it's not actually been his peak performance of the seasons. It's almost as if they wind him up to Christmas and then maybe give him a short period of downtime, whatever, and then come here to then go to Cheltenham. So look, does that make him vulnerable? No, I don't think so. Will he be as spectacular as he was at Christmas? Maybe not. I've taken a lot there and I haven't recommended anything in terms of a price or a bet. Because, I mean, like a lot of these grade ones, I have struggled to try and find an in, I must admit. Maybe it could be in the market again without, because Factor will be ridden either closer to the pace and upsides, and that might hinder his chance overall. So he might drop out into 3rd or 4th, or they might ride him cold to come through and pick pieces. And, will that be done too late? I don't know. So there probably is an option to try and find something without. It'd be Monty's Star if the stable were in a bit better form. I think Henry de Bromhead's horses haven't quite been fully firing, but that's probably been out of design rather than fault. I think they probably just want a quiet period in January to then kick on through the spring. So I think Monty Starr will turn around form with Embassy Gardens from Tremor. I think he'll come on quite notably for that run. So he might be the most interesting proposition from an each way or a betting without perspective. But it was a race, again, similar to the Irish Arkle. It didn't really excite me a lot from a price perspective, but from a pure viewing perspective, it really will.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the good thing. We've got so many good races across the 2 days. Not every single one has to be a bet in there. The betting without will definitely be a market to look at, because Factor Foul, it either works and he goes real close and wins, or gets, like I say, gets real close, or it doesn't work and then his race folds and then he's not the one that finishes second behind Gallop in the Champ. I know the way you're thinking was good at Aim for You, winning, and he's like a massive price in here. Anyway, you can check out our columns on which bookie. I'll put a link in the description as per usual for what our final thoughts are for Saturday and Sunday anyway, because who knows, between now and then, me and Will may have found the answer to the ins in every single race. Right, the next race is another handicap. It's another listed chase. Oh, I say listed chase, another listed handicap. Handicap chase this time, 2 mile, 1 furlong, a 0 to 150. Now, this is a good looking race, to be fair. We've got Midnight, it is for Gavin Cromwell, that's heading the market. He was one of his, was it the first 5 home or something stupid he got over Christmas, didn't he? Nice progressive horse. He's been climbing up the ranks. I think he's won 3-3 now from sort of low 100s at the start of the season, but comes in with real good form. Shambali Kids wearing first time cheap pieces for Willie Mullins. Very interested in that one. The Giggins Towney type horse. He is an 8-year-old. I didn't realise he was so old, but good third in a Coral Cup last year behind Lucky Place, Langadam. They've obviously come and won graded races after, so he's well handicapped. I half had a mind with him being the horse for the Turners Novices Chase, the handicappy thing that it is now. I don't think it's the Turners. Sorry to the new sponsors. But the middle distance handicap chase, the novices handicap chase, he's 33 to 1 non-runner, no bet for that. Cheap pieces go on here. I've said that these might not be plotty races towards going to Cheltenham, but if it doesn't work out for him today, that would be his next attempt at winning a handicap over in Cheltenham, I think. And like I say, his Coral Cup third was over 2 mile 5, wasn't it? The novice chase will be 2 mile 4, and this is 2 mile 1. So I think as much the cheap pieces are interesting, and he clearly has got a chance in here, I want to see him step back up and trip. So that would be my recommendation for the thought of this race. He's on my shortlist for this, though, but he is 5 to 1. The one that I'm going to wait a little bit, because he's 10 to 1 with a firm I can get on, and he's 12 to 1 with firms that I can't, is Facile Mode. Just because his jumping first time up when he beat Touch Me Not was really, really good. His jumping over hurdles was left a little bit to be decided, but his Jason debut was really, really good. His second run, he fell at the second, and then his third run, he made loads of mistakes when he was a short price favourite, but looked like a horse that had just had a fall and was a bit scared of going over his fences. So that lack of confidence is a bit of a worry, but they wouldn't be sending him into a big handicap like this if they don't think he was ready for it. I think he's much better than his mark. 10 to 1, or like I say, 12 to 1 top price about him is pretty good. 3 places is a bit tight, so hopefully some firms might go extra on there. But I think the key thing with him, and I'm happy to wait until the day for this one as well, is that debut was on better ground. It's soft at the moment, but it doesn't look like it's much of a wet forecast over there. If the ground got to yielding or even quicker for him, I think he'll jump better out of it. So he's sort of on my shortlist in there. But how did you see this one? Do you think Midnight is, I mean, it's been supported in the anti-post markets as favourite at the top of the market, deserves to be there, or was there someone at a bigger price you liked?
Yeah, no, I do think he deserves to be there. Absolutely. I think I don't think this is a strong race, with all due respect to the protagonist, certainly for the grade and the prize money. I think the 2 mile handicap chase scene over in Ireland, almost year in, year out, is always a one that you could, if you had a decent 2 mile handicap chaser over here, that you should send one over for this, because it's not the strongest, I don't think. And that, for that reason, Midnight it is for me is absolutely rock solid at the top of the market. If you can get 4 to 1, 9 to 2, even 7 to 2, that has to be an each way bet for me, because he's been sharply progressive. He was very good at Navan on his first start back in December of the season. That was a notable step forward from what he'd done the season before. And even in the Dan and Joan Moore Memorial at Fairyhouse last time out, I guess you could sort of suggest that the £12 extra has maybe anchored him and he's finished third. But the way that race panned out, I mean, he shifts a little bit left at his fences anyway. He got a little bit behind at times and caught in behind runners, and then sort of ran on once the race was all over and the 2 stablemates had gone beyond him. So I think Leopardstown 2 miles 1 is absolutely bang on for Midnight. It is. I expect him to go very, very close to winning this before going to probably Cheltenham for the Grand Annual. and going close in that, I would imagine. There's another horse in the Dan and Joan Moore that is worth more than a passing interest, I think, as well. He was down the field in that. And it's Willie Mullins' Hador, who might be one of those sort of horses that he's cherry-picked a few races for, and they've won small field conditions races and smallish summer races, and perhaps he's just got an inflated rating as a result of that. But there were glimmers, well, more than glimmers in graded races last year, that he is a very, very good horse, actually. And Willie Mullins, sometimes with these handicappers, he'll run them plenty, and then they'll happen upon a winning chance, and that's when they're properly tuned up, they're ready to go for it. And I just wondered whether, given he's now on a mark of 139, come down a little bit from where he was in what isn't a great handicap. He's been running behind the likes of El Fabiola in graded races over the last season and a half. So I thought he was definitely worth an interest, see which way he went in the market, because I think on ability, he could be, well, he is better than a handicapper, and this is a perfect chance for him to prove it.
Oh, I like that. It's like you say, it's not a vintage renewal of this race, which is a harsh thing to say, but I just mean 7 years it's been DRF. We haven't had a winner older than 7 in the race. We've only got one runner that is 7 this time, Facile Mode. So it might take a different mold of horse this time. It might not be the sort of less exposed ones. The other thing as well, 6 of the 7 winners are rated between 132 and 142. So it's another box ticked for Facile Mode. I didn't even fancy him off the back of that, but we need the ground to come better for him. He might rate a reasonable bet then. Right, we'll move on to the bumper just to close things out. Grade 2 race, a decent race in its own right. It definitely disappointing that Calypso Chance doesn't run, just for the fact that I don't think Gigginstown really care about the champion bumper at Cheltenham. I don't think they really target horses for that. They don't buy them for that. I think they buy horses to win Gold Cups. The fact that he's not in this race, I thought he would have come here and taken this part, and then they'd have been like, oh, whether we send him to Cheltenham or not, it's a different story. I thought he was real good over Christmas. The fact that he's not coming here maybe is a good sign for people that have backed him for Cheltenham, but I mean, I'd still be lukewarm with him around there. But it sort of through the race, I don't want to be rude and say that I don't really care about it anymore, but it was only the horse that was second to him that I thought had a bit of a chance of sort of, I don't know, being a special horse in him. But yeah, the fact that horse isn't in the race, Will, I've lost interest in this bumper. So can you be more enthusiastic for our viewers, please?
No, I agree. He was the one that I was looking forward to seeing. He was going to be odds on, I'd imagine. So it wouldn't have been a bet, definitely. But he was definitely, of real interest. I hope that doesn't mean that he's met with a setback, because as you said, that Gigginstown, they're really not keen on sending horses to the Cheltenham bumper. So I don't know why you'd miss this if you could at all avoid it. The one that maybe could sort of slip into his shoes, if you will, or certainly at least go some way to doing so, would be He Can't Dance, who's an interesting model of a horse, because he's actually won a bumper and then has been gelded since then. He was a good point-to-point winner as well for Gigginstown, and he's got a really nice pedigree as well, strong staying quality pedigree. Plenty of decent horses on both sides of the pedigree there, and he's not done much wrong really in one point-to-point and one bumper. Haven't seen whether Harry Swan he's usually the number one, isn't he, for Gordon Elliott and Gigginstown with their bumper horses. If he were to be jocked up on him, then he'd definitely be of real interest, but the price would be, it would match it, wouldn't it? So, but he's probably the one that I think could potentially have the best ability of these moving forward. But again, like lots of the races on the Saturday, very much a watching brief. I've definitely got more strongish opinions, shall we say, for the Sunday. So stay tuned for that update.
Absolutely. And while we have had horses like Facile Vega, Kilcret, Appreciate It, Envoy Elan that have won this in the past, we did have Jeroboam Machine that won it last year. I know A Dream to Share won this and then won the champion bumper, but you talk about this, especially the jockey bookings for the Gigginstown horses. Patrick rode that Calypso Chance last time, didn't it? So that was the potential horse to go for a Cheltenham champion bumper. That Green Splendor was beat by Regent Stroll in the Newbury bumper, wasn't it? And I don't want to be rude to that as a horse, but typically Willie Mullins and Patrick Mullins, you wouldn't go far wrong betting him in this race. But I don't believe we're going to see a Cheltenham champion bumper horse in this race. But happy to sit back, watch and be proven wrong, because if something goes and dots up in here, it's still going to be a deep enough race that they've got to be quite a good horse. But I suspect it might be a bit more of a bunched finish. Right, Will, that is Dublin Racing Festival for Saturday done. Have you got time to mention anything from anywhere else on Saturday, or do you want to get done with the show?
I've backed one horse, anti-post, up at Musselburgh in the champion chase there, Fidelio Vallis, for Harry Derham and Alice Stevens in the 250, the 2.5 mile, 100 grand champion chase up there. Won a race over course and distance last year on New Year's Day. This has been the target all along. Had 2 runs so far this season, which have just put the finishing touches on him, and it looks a winnable renewal of a very valuable race. So I think Harry Derham, who could have a good weekend, hopefully. He's got 1 or 2 chances one over at Dublin as well, and then a couple at Musselburgh. So big weekend for Harry Derham, and I'm hoping that Fidelio Vallis is one of those on Saturday at Musselburgh.
Superb. So a bonus bit of insight there from Will. As I say, there'll be a link in the description for the Daily Which Bookie website, which has our tips on there with what I fancy and what Will fancies. Like Will touched on there might be some anti-post bets from Will as well in the week, which have done quite well. Galro went in for you last week as well, Will. So that'll be in the link in the description. You can go check that out. But hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you'll get notified when we upload tomorrow. Make sure you're liking the video. Drop a comment if you're that way inclined. And again, yeah, we will see you again tomorrow.